This food wasn't invented for taste, it wasn't invented for luxury, and it definitely wasn't created for social media. It was invented because people were desperate to survive. For centuries, entire communities faced the same terrifying problem every single year. Winter, not modern winter where grocery stores stay full and food arrives from across the world overnight. A winter where farms died, rivers froze, and one bad season could mean starvation. Out of that struggle came one of the most famous foods on Earth. This is the story of kimchi. The Korean peninsula experiences extreme seasonal changes, hot, humid summers, then brutally cold winters. Temperatures could drop far below freezing for months, and long before refrigeration existed, that created a serious problem. Once the ground froze, farming stopped completely. No harvesting, no fresh vegetables, no easy access to food. People had to prepare months in advance, or they simply wouldn't survive until spring. Imagine knowing that every year an entire season was coming, where food would slowly disappear. That fear shaped Korean society for generations. Rice alone wasn't enough. Communities needed a way to preserve vegetables for as long as possible without letting them rot. And preservation in the ancient world wasn't convenient. It was survival science. People across history experimented with drying, smoking, salting, and fermenting food. But in Korea, something unique began to evolve. Something that could survive underground through an entire frozen winter. Early forms of kimchi were surprisingly simple. No bright red color, no chili peppers, just salted vegetables. Most historians believe the earliest versions appeared thousands of years ago. Vegetables like radish and cabbage were tightly packed with salt. Salt removed moisture, slowing bacterial growth and decay. At first, the goal wasn't flavor, it was preservation. But over time, people noticed something strange. The vegetables didn't just last longer, they changed. The taste became deeper, sharper, more complex. The texture transformed, and most importantly, people who ate fermented vegetables stayed healthier during winter months. They didn't fully understand why. Modern science would only explain it centuries later. But ancient people already knew something important. Fermentation worked. What makes kimchi special isn't just the ingredients, it's the bacteria. During fermentation, beneficial microorganisms begin breaking down sugars naturally found in vegetables. As this process happens, acids develop. Those acids make the environment hostile to dangerous bacteria. In other words, the food protects itself. Without realizing it, people had discovered one of the oldest forms of biological food preservation, and it changed everything. Fermented vegetables could last for months, sometimes even longer. They retained nutrients, and unlike spoiled food, they were relatively safe to eat. Today, scientists study kimchi for its probiotic qualities, gut health benefits, and antioxidant properties. But centuries ago, none of that mattered. All people knew was this: kimchi helped families survive winter. One of the biggest surprises in kimchi history, the iconic red color, is actually relatively recent. Chili peppers didn't exist in Korea originally. They arrived centuries later, likely through global trade routes after contact with the Americas. Before that, kimchi looked completely different. But once chili peppers spread across Korea, everything changed. The spice added flavor, but it also helped preservation. Garlic, ginger, fish sauce, and pepper created stronger, more complex fermentation. Regional variations exploded across the country. Different climates, different ingredients, different recipes passed down through generations. Eventually, there wouldn't be just one kimchi. There would be hundreds. Then came one of Korea's most important traditions, Kimjang. Every autumn, entire families and communities gathered together to prepare massive amounts of kimchi before winter arrived. This wasn't casual cooking, it was a national survival ritual. Mountains of cabbage filled homes and courtyards, people salted vegetables for hours. Seasonings were mixed by hand. Large clay jars, called ongi, were packed tightly with kimchi, then buried underground. The earth acted like a natural refrigerator, keeping temperatures stable during freezing winters. For many families, the success of their kimchi supply could determine how well they survived the cold season ahead. Kimjang wasn't just about food, it became about cooperation. Neighbors helped neighbors. Families worked together for days. Knowledge passed between generations. Parents taught children recipes that had survived for centuries. Even today, Kimjang remains deeply important in Korean culture. UNESCO eventually recognized it as part of humanity's cultural heritage because it represented more than cooking. It represented collective survival. Korea faced invasions, colonization, war, and devastating poverty throughout its history. And during times of crisis, kimchi remained constant. It traveled with soldiers, with refugees, with displaced families, carrying almost nothing else. Why? Because kimchi was practical. It required no electricity, no refrigeration, minimal ingredients, and it could feed people during uncertainty. In many ways, kimchi became more than food. It became emotional comfort, a reminder of home, of family, of endurance. Even during the Korean War, when resources became scarce, kimchi remained one of the few reliable foods many families could still prepare. The dish had survived centuries of hardship, and once again, it endured. Today, kimchi is no longer limited to Korea. It has spread across the world. Restaurants serve it everywhere from New York to Paris to Tokyo. Chefs experiment with modern variations. Scientists study its health benefits. Social media turned it into a global food trend. But despite all of that popularity, its original purpose remains hidden beneath the surface. Kimchi wasn't created in luxury. It came from necessity, from fear of starvation, from preparation against brutal winters. It represents generations of people solving one simple problem. How do we survive until spring? Most famous foods begin with pleasure. Kimchi began with endurance. It was built by ordinary people facing impossible conditions year after year. And somehow, through centuries of war, winter, poverty, and change, it survived. Not because it was trendy, not because it was beautiful, but because it worked. And maybe that's why kimchi still matters today, because hidden inside every jar is a reminder of human resilience, the ability to adapt, to preserve, to endure, and sometimes the foods that last the longest tell the greatest stories.